There was a time when the name John D. Rockefeller alone could make men tremble. Not merely a businessman, Rockefeller was the architect of an empire that shaped America. Yet, before his name was whispered in the halls of power, before newspapers chronicled his rise and his ruthlessness, John D. Rockefeller was a boy born into poverty in the small town of Richford, New York, in 1839. His father, William Devil Bill Rockefeller, was a man of contradictions, a charming con artist, a traveling showman, a failed farmer. Sometimes he would disappear for months, leaving his family destitute, only to return in finery, showering his children with gifts he could barely afford. His mother, Eliza, a devout Baptist, filled the vacuum with discipline, faith, and relentless determination. It was under her guidance that young John learned his first lesson. Survival depended on ingenuity, persistence, and absolute discipline. By age 10, John was already contributing to the family income. He raised turkeys, sold eggs, tracked small profits, and learned the value of money through hard labor. Education was secondary, but it was the seeds of literacy and numeracy, combined with his daily work, that would later allow him to master the world of finance. At 16, Rockefeller entered the workforce, rejected by railroads, banks, and wholesale merchants for his age. He finally secured a modest bookkeeping position. The salary was paltry, yet it represented independence. He celebrated the day he received his first paycheck as Job Day, a personal holiday marking the beginning of a journey that would transform his life. Over the next 2 years, Rockefeller's discipline and precision caught the attention of his employer and peers. He absorbed every lesson in accounting, management, and negotiation, and then came the pivotal moment, an opportunity to invest in Samuel Andrews' fledgling oil refinery. What began as a side venture would ignite the spark that consumed Rockefeller's life. For the next decades, oil in mid-19th century America was both opportunity and uncertainty. Well oil had long lit the lamps of the nation, but crude petroleum, discovered in Pennsylvania, promised profit in abundance, but only for those who could master the volatile, competitive, and unpredictable industry. Rockefeller, now in partnership with Maurice Clark, began cautiously. The produce business provided capital and credibility, but it was the refinery that revealed John's talent for strategic thinking. He avoided the dangerous pitfalls of drilling, focusing instead on refining, a high-margin, low-risk part of the chain. Here, Rockefeller discovered the first law of his empire: control costs, dominate distribution, and exploit information advantage. By 1865, he had bought out Clark and rebranded the company as Standard Oil. His approach was systematic, methodical, almost military in precision. He negotiated secret rebates with railroads, leveraged intelligence on competitors, and orchestrated price wars that crushed rival businesses. The so-called Cleveland Massacre saw 22 of 26 local refineries absorbed or forced out, and Rockefeller learned that fear, when wielded intelligently, could be as powerful as money, but wealth alone did not define him. Rockefeller's devout faith colored his decisions. Philanthropy was never far from his mind. Even as he built his empire, he gave a portion of his income to charity, a precursor to the vast contributions he would make later in life. Yet, by the early 1870s, Standard Oil faced systemic challenges: falling oil prices, overproduction, and the 1873 financial panic threatened to collapse the industry. Where others saw ruin, Rockefeller saw opportunity. He bought struggling competitors, built pipelines to bypass railroad dependence, and vertically integrated operations, securing control from oil well to consumer lamp. By the end of this period, Rockefeller had transformed from a small town boy into the undisputed king of Cleveland's oil industry. But this was only the beginning. The stage was set for horizontal and vertical expansion across the nation, for rivalries with titans like Andrew Carnegie, for secretive deals with J.P. Morgan, and eventually, for a confrontation with the U.S. government itself. Each move, calculated with military precision, would define an era. By the 1870s, John D. Rockefeller had already mastered the basics of the oil trade: refining, distribution, and ruthless competition. But Rockefeller's vision went far beyond Cleveland or Pennsylvania. He dreamed of a national monopoly, a company that could control oil from well to lamp, from pipeline to consumer. What others saw as risk, Rockefeller saw as strategy. What others feared, he transformed into opportunity. The first step was vertical integration. Rockefeller realized that reliance on railroads to ship oil was dangerous. Railroads could raise prices, favor rivals, or slow shipments. His solution was ingenious: build his own pipelines, negotiate secret rebates, and construct storage facilities near key markets. By 1872, Standard Oil owned pipelines stretching hundreds of miles, giving him control no competitor could match. Next came horizontal expansion. Rockefeller systematically acquired competing refineries, sometimes through friendly buyouts, other times through aggressive price wars that left rivals bankrupt. His tactics were relentless, often ruthless. Small refinery owners either joined Standard Oil or faced ruin. By 1879, Standard Oil controlled over 90% of the refining capacity in the United States. An empire built not on luck, but meticulous planning and relentless execution. Yet, it wasn't only about oil. Rockefeller understood the power of secrecy and perception. Contracts with railroads were often confidential, giving Standard Oil advantages invisible to the public eye. Competitors saw rebates and discounts only after the fact. Even banks, suppliers, and investors were drawn into his orbit, often unknowingly aiding his expansion. This web of influence became the backbone of a company that seemed unstoppable, but empire building invited enemies. Independent oil producers, rival tycoons, and newspapers accused Rockefeller of monopolistic tyranny. The press labeled him a robber baron, vilifying his tactics and questioning his ethics. Yet Rockefeller remained unshaken. In private, he often remarked, "Competition is a sin," not because he feared rivals, but because he believed in efficiency and absolute control. By the 1880s, Standard Oil's reach extended beyond Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. Rockefeller purchased refineries in the Midwest, built pipelines along the East Coast, and even extended influence internationally, exporting oil to Europe. Each acquisition, each pipeline, each secret rebate was a calculated move in a grand chess game. Rockefeller played for decades ahead, thinking in terms of generations, not years. At the same time, Rockefeller's personal life was tightly controlled. Unlike flamboyant tycoons of the era, he lived modestly, gave generously to charity, and remained devoted to his family and faith. He funded churches, universities, and hospitals, understanding that public perception mattered as much as profit. This duality, ruthless businessman, devout philanthropist, made Rockefeller both feared and admired. By the end of Chapter 2, the United States had entered a new era, one in which Standard Oil dictated prices, controlled markets, and reshaped the economy. The groundwork was laid for political clashes, legal challenges, and national debates over monopolies. Rockefeller's empire was not just a company, it was a force that challenged the very limits of law, ethics, and capitalism. The stage was now set for confrontation with the government itself, for battles with other industrial titans, and for Rockefeller to define the modern concept of CO or PO or ADE power. By the 1890s, John D. Rockefeller had achieved what few could even imagine: absolute dominance of the oil industry. Standard Oil controlled refining, transportation and distribution, pipelines, railroads, storage, and export networks all funneled under his command. But as Rockefeller's empire grew, so did the scrutiny. Newspapers criticized him, politicians whispered about corruption, and a growing public outcry demanded action. The stage was set for the first modern antitrust battle in the United States. One of Rockefeller's fiercest critics was Ida Tarbell, a journalist whose father had been driven out of the oil business by Standard Oil's aggressive tactics. Her meticulous reports revealed the inner workings of Rockefeller's empire: secret railroad rebates, intimidation of competitors, and monopolistic control of oil markets. Her articles were widely read and fueled public anger, painting Rockefeller as the embodiment of corporate greed. Tarbell's work caught the attention of politicians, particularly President Theodore Roosevelt, who rose to power on a platform promising to break monopolies and protect the American people from corporate abuse. Roosevelt, a progressive reformer, recognized Standard Oil as the perfect target. The company was massive, widely hated, and symbolized everything wrong with unchecked capitalism. The government launched an investigation under the Sherman Antitrust Act, which had been passed in 1890 but rarely enforced. Lawyers scoured Standard Oil's operations, compiling thousands of documents detailing pricing schemes, secret deals, and the systematic elimination of competitors. It was a historic legal battle, pitting one of the most powerful men in the world against the full weight of the United States government. Rockefeller, ever strategic, did not panic. He had prepared for crises throughout his career. Standard Oil's legal team fought vigorously, claiming efficiency, innovation, and business acumen justified their actions. Rockefeller himself remained calm, knowing that the dissolution of a company does not equal the destruction of personal wealth. In 1911, after years of litigation, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly and ordered its breakup into 34 independent companies. On the surface, it appeared to be a catastrophic defeat for Rockefeller, yet in reality, the breakup multiplied his wealth. He retained significant shares in each new company, which, once publicly traded, soared in value. Rockefeller had turned an apparent loss into the most profitable event of his career, cementing his status as the world's richest man. With Standard Oil dismantled, Rockefeller turned to philanthropy, fully embracing his lifelong commitment to faith, charity, and social responsibility. In 1913, he established the Rockefeller Foundation, a legacy that would outlive him and continue to influence medicine, education, and public health for generations. His donations funded research to eradicate diseases like malaria and hookworm, and built institutions of higher learning that remain world-renowned today. Rockefeller's legacy is complex to some. He is the ruthless titan who crushed competitors, manipulated markets, and accumulated unimaginable wealth. To others, he is the visionary philanthropist whose charitable work transformed society. Both perspectives are true. His story illustrates the extremes of capitalism, the heights of ambition and power, and the moral dilemmas that come with it. Ultimately, John D. Rockefeller's life is a testament to discipline, strategy, and vision. From a poor, determined boy in Cleveland to the world's first billionaire, he reshaped the American economy and set the blueprint for modern business. He demonstrated that great wealth brings both opportunity and scrutiny, that genius and ruthlessness often walk hand in hand, and that true legacy is measured not only by money, but by the impact one leaves on the world. By the time he passed away at 97, Rockefeller had changed the United States forever. His empire had been broken, but his influence endured. In industry, in society, and in history itself, Standard Oil may have been dismantled, but John D. Rockefeller's mark on the modern world remains indelible, a story of ambition, strategy, controversy, and unparalleled success.